Due to the nature of the role, supports don't really accumulate as much gold as the others. And thus, if you're playing support, you'll end up building around only 3 items for most matches. That's why when we think about what to build on support, providing all 5 items is kind of pointless when you really only need to focus on the first 3 in addition to your crest. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to build effectively when you're on the support role. Let's go.
Tried my best just to catch a fucking smile, but for now I see myself ain't hitting the 35. Wait 4 days.
Starting off with Dekker, she's the easiest to build. For the Crest, pick up Rift Walkers for the multi-stun plays. If the enemy team has a Fae, pick Reclamation instead. For your first item, you want to grab Tainted Scepter if the enemy support is a Narbash or a Phase. Otherwise, build Dynamo first. And after that, you can build Time Warp. When building Dynamo first, I recommend building Spirit Beads since it gives 150 extra mana, which means you can cast more spells. When building Tainted Scepter, make sure to build on this path of the tree since Spiked Birch will give you access to Blight, which also means anti-heal. If you are building Time Warp, build this side of the tree since Essence Ring gives you a nice bit of mana regen. For Belica, it's more or less the same as Dekker. Pick Rift Walkers for the multi-stun plays. If the enemy team has a Fae, pick Reclamation instead. Build Tainted Scepter first if the enemy support is a Narbash or a Phase again. If they're not, you can choose either Dynamo, Martial, or Time Warp first in any order. If you're building Martial first, build this side of the tree since Essence Ring again gives you a nice bit of mana regen and haste. For Phase, any crest is viable except for Rift Walkers. If the enemy team has a Fae, pick Reclamation instead. If the enemy mid laner is a Gideon, or if the enemy ADC is a Kira, pick Silentium. Since Phase is an enchanter, you want to get Hollowed Braid as soon as possible. This is the second tier item for Requiem. What you want to do is build Hollowed Braid to get your stacks going as early as possible, but not upgrade all the way to Requiem. Instead, you need to work on a second item while Hollowed Braid is busy reaching 20 stacks. So, if your ADC is a Rev, Twin Blast, or Wraith, you can pick Crystal Tier. Or if the enemy support is a Narbash, you can get Tainted Totem. Other viable options are Windcaller and Galaxy Greaves. It's up to you. Crystal Tier will boost up your Revs, TBs, and Wraith's abilities with magical scaling. Tainted Totem will allow you to blight a Narbash who can out-sustain you. Windcaller will give your ADC some juicy movement speed, and Galaxy Greaves works really well with Phase's kit. If you're building Tainted Totem, start with the side that has Spiked Birch. If you're building Windcaller, get the Divine Wreath first, since this item enhances your healing. Lastly, if you're building Galaxy Greaves, build on this path in order to get Polar Treads, which boosts your out-of-combat move speed. Once you complete a second item, by that time your Hollowed Braid will be fully stacked, so go ahead and complete it to Requiem. For Muriel, her build path is exactly the same as Phase, except instead of Galaxy Greaves, swap that out for Wellspring. Building Muriel is basically building items that contain Divine Wreath as a tier 2 component. So basically Requiem, Crystal Tier, Windcaller, and Wellspring. The order is up to you, and the conditions for Crystal Tier are the same as I explained before. When you're building Wellspring, build this path of the tree for getting access to Divine Wreath sooner. For Narbash, I recommend Sanctification. Because he is a tanky enchanter, you can opt for Reclamation instead if the enemy has a Fae. You again want to do the Hollowed Braid strategy I mentioned earlier for Phase and Muriel. But because you also want him to be tanky, he functions best as a hybrid, so let's get started. Once you complete Hollowed Braid, start working on making him tanky. This comes in the form of True Silver Bracelet, Raiment of Renewal, and Hexbound Bracers. Windcaller is another amazing option for Narbash. Similarly with Phase and Muriel, if your ADC is a Rev, TB, or Wraith, you can go Crystal Tier to boost some of their abilities. Raiment of Renewal allows you to be very tanky and gives you lots of sustain in lane if you're up against a ranged support. Build on this side of the tree in order to get Stalwart Gauntlets, which gives you a spike of health and health regen. True Silver Bracelet will allow you to more comfortably execute the full duration of your ultimate. Hexbound Bracers is also a great option if you want to face tank for your ADC while also gaining haste and mana, which in turn allows you to heal more. If you decide to build Hexbound Bracers, build on this side in order to get Cerulean Stone, which gives armor, mana, and haste, all of which Narbash likes. So when building Narbash, think of building Enchanter, then tanky, then repeat. Riktor is a true tanky disruptor support. Riftwalkers is the way to go. Right away, you want your first item to make you tanky. The two good options are Hexbound Bracers and Raiment of Renewal. Hexbound Bracers gives you armor, mana for those expensive hooks, and haste for the hooks as well. Raiment of Renewal will help you sustain in lane if the enemy support is ranged. Another powerful option is Frosted Lure, which perfectly complements Riktor's all-in playstyle. Since Riktor is not a hybrid like Narbash, he has the luxury to build any tank item the team needs. Giant's Ring will give you cooldowns and mitigation. Tainted Guard and Tainted Bastion will provide anti-heal for the team. And finally, Galaxy Greaves will help when roaming. And last but certainly not least, the final support to cover is Steel. You already know how much I love Riftwalkers on Steel. For your first item, Raiment will help you sustain in lane if the enemy support is ranged. If the enemy support is a Riktor or a Narbash, build Dynamo first instead. Frosted Lure is a strong choice as it complements Steel's all-in playstyle. For your next item, if your ADC is a Revenant, Twin Blast, or Wraith, you can pick Flux Matrix. This will allow you to stun your enemies longer and boost some of their abilities as well. But that's enough out of me. I want to know what you think. Leave a comment below. Leave a like if you haven't already. It helps me make more content like this. If you like my content, consider subscribing. It helps me out a ton and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you on the next Predecessor video. Medkit out.